he's the type of guy that'll come to a show and like I have to tell him like you are not allowed on the stage because there's been shows that he'll like walk onto stage and like start filming me. I'm like, dude, get off stage. Like, what are you doing? So now I have to tell him, like you're not allowed on the stage. This is my workspace. You can watch from the side. But yeah, I'm lucky that I have a dad that really like supports me and cares about what I'm doing.
I am like a Koki. It's so nice to have you here with us. This is Drives the Common Man. I must say, one of my most favorite punk pop artists. Thank you for
Oh,
being here.
thank you so much.
Yeah, longtime admirer and fan of yours. I'm Red. I'm the station manager here at the Daybreak Star Radio Network. And then this is
I'm Ronnie, the production manager and DJ here at Daybreak Star Radio. And yeah, thank you for joining us. We really appreciate it. First off, if you could maybe introduce yourself to our audience for those who may not know you.
Yeah, for sure. My name is Drives the Common Man. Rooted here in well, I'm rooted in East Coast Canada, Eskazoni First Nation, but living here in Southern Ontario. And yeah, thank you for having me, guys. I'm super stoked. You guys are so nice. Thank you.
So my first question is, your music blends elements of pop, punk, rock, and creates a nostalgic alternative pop sound. What draws you to this style, and how do you make it your own?
It's when I was young, I was just like pop punk was always around me, like pop rock from like my older sisters and stuff like that. So like for whatever reason, like that sound, even before I kind of like knew it was pop punk or punk rock or anything like that, that always like drew to me. Every time I heard something on like a mixtape my sisters had, there'd be like 20 different songs on it, but for whatever reason, every single time there was like a pop punk song on it, I was just like stoked about it. I was like, so like ever since I was a kid, I just had like a weird ear for it. And like when I really like set my identity to that, you know what I mean? Like especially growing up as like a mixed kid. And I was like, man, I'm white and then I'm native and stuff like that. So again, like anyone who's mixed kind of goes through these identity kind of issues and stuff. But punk rock was like the first thing that I was like, I know I belong here. If I don't belong anywhere else, I belong here. I'm a punk rocker, you know what I mean?
your songwriting has a lot of kind of deep personal and emotional stuff in it. Can you walk us through your creative process and let us know how your songs come to life?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I always start with the music because I just like I really like consider myself a producer and a songwriter like within everything else. So I always try to get like the kind of emotional sensibility of the song and that'll kind of give me an idea of what I kind of want to write about, whether it's like something that's more personal or something like for newer stuff that I've been working on, it's kind of more like looking at the world at large with like a little hints of kind of personal things in there as well. So it's always just kind of like setting the scene with the music because like I'm passionate about like making the actual instrumentation and producing the music myself. And then I figure it out. But sometimes it works weird. Like if it could be a really happy sounding song and I'm like, I want to write about being sad, Like it's so it kind of switches up every once in a while. But yeah, it's always like the music first and then try to figure out what to write lyrically.
So
Yeah.
how does producing your own tracks, allow you to shape your sound in a way that, feels true to you?
It's just my influences. Like again, like I very rooted in punk rock. And you know what I mean? Like it's always kind of weird to say like I kind of shy away from being like, oh yeah, I'm like pop punk because like there's such a like I respect it too much and I know how other punk rockers are and they'll hear it be like, that's not punk, man. There's like a synth on it and that's too poppy. And it's like I think like I know where my roots are and I know where it comes through in my music. So that's all that really matters to me. But yeah, like just taking so many different influences from other stuff that isn't just like punk rock. Like I got into a lot of like even since like high school, I got into a lot of like the UK pop music and the kind of dance hall, kind of like Afrobeat stuff. So then when I started producing my own songs, I was like, well, I can kind of like have those beats and that bouncy vibe, but also be able to play guitar riffs, how I've been playing guitar riffs since I've been playing guitar, which are all kind of more like kind of rooted in the pop punk stuff. So for me, it's just like having like a vast kind of not to be like that guy who's like, oh, I just listen to every type of music and so like you know what I mean? But yeah, there is a lot of different influences that all come together that, wouldn't you wouldn't get that from, that sounds horrible too. Like you're not gonna get that from anybody else. But like for me, I have specific types of music and I put them into my music in a certain way, you know?
Well, that answered the next question here. So, one that's off this list is what with all the influences your one of your newest songs, "Singer Not a Fighter," which I love and
Yeah.
it's basically playing on my show every single day right now.
No, thank you.
Um, um, what was the inspiration behind that?
It was definitely like musically, it was the weirdest thing ever. Like that just happened out of nowhere. I was messing around with this sample, and I love beats that have this bounce. So I kind of cooked up this whole like this drum group sample, and then added my own drums onto it, and then with the guitar. And then after I was like listening to it, and I was like, this sounds like anthemic, man. Like this can't just be like a oh I'm sad and like life sucks kind of thing. I was like, this needs to be kind of anthemic and the lyric is one of those moments like the lyrics kind of just came to me and I wanted to and again it wasn't like I wanted to write a song about this, it just kind of came out like they just entered my head, I sang it and it already started having this idea of kind of like the world's kind of crazy, the world's falling apart even more so now like long after I started writing the song. So yeah, I just started thinking of this kind of like anthem, but also not, it's not too much like, yo, we got this, we're gonna save the world. It's more so just being like, man, like, what am I gonna do, man? I'm a singer, I'm not gonna I can't change the world. I feel like there's too much power within all the kind of horrible things that are happening in this world that are totally out of our hands. So I was like, well, if you're going to connect with people, especially through something like music, why don't you just say that, Because at the very end of the day, that's what everyone can connect on is that kind of feeling of helplessness and, not being able to do anything. And the irony is kind of like, well, if we can all accept that that's true or that we do feel that way, maybe we can all like kind of band together and kind of counter that, like kind of fight that ideology.
Do you find that your culture and heritage influence your music? If so, how do you incorporate those elements into your songwriting or production?
For sure. I mean, like, just like my family, especially on like my Mi'kmaq side, like we're always like very musical. Like they're always playing in bands. My dad was playing in bands. So like take away kind of like the traditional side of music. I always kind of seen my people, like Mi'kmaq people, as like always very musical. Like everyone's always like when you go to the res, everyone's kind of jamming out all the time. There's always like a guitar around. So it's like to me that was just kind of like what it was without like thinking about it too much or digging kind of deeper into it. Obviously, I kind of got more into like I guess not obviously, but like I kind of dived into like a lot of the traditional songs that we have, like the Gojwa, kind of like a celebration song. And that's Michael Ardeni is kind of someone from Escazone that does that sound very well. And he was the one in the drum group that I sampled for Singer Not a Fighter. So it's like all these little things that like at first it's just like, oh, I'm gonna sample this drum group. But then you look back on it and you're like, oh, that's kind of cool that I sampled someone who's like kind of singing a traditional way, releasing their own music and stuff like that too. So in a fun kind of way, it was like being able to connect with my roots a little bit more.
But I'm wondering how social media maybe has influenced your journey as an artist or, the way you share your music.
Um, I mean, at the very end of the day, it's like you see how important it is to be on social media to be able to like share with people. And again, that changes all the time. Like at first it was like you put up flyers, promote your band, like your bands or your shows and stuff like that, or go and hand out people CDs. But now it's very much in the like we're doing that all online. So it's important and getting lucky on social media during the kind of COVID thing and like putting out covers and stuff like obviously like put me in a different place where like I get a reach of, a lot of people like doing what I like, which is music and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, it's kind of one of those things where I don't want to keep doing that all the time. You know what I mean? I was like, I wanted to like make my own, like I was making my own music, but I wanted people to like know me for my own music as well. So it was this kind of weird thing of like, oh, these are all these followers and stuff, but are they following me for me covering other people's music or it was just this weird thing, but I'm grateful and I'm super stoked that all that happened and I was able to kind of connect with a bunch of people that I wouldn't have connected with if I hadn't had a TikTok account. You know what I mean? So the whole thing was kind of weird, but I'm grateful. I'm glad that it happened.
But what messages or emotions do you hope listeners take away from your songs?
Whatever people are gonna get from it is what people are gonna get from it. It's hard to be like, I don't like. write them and be like, oh, people are gonna feel this way or this way. You know what I mean? Like at the end of the day, I'd like people to just like it, and if it inspires them, that's cool too. You know what I mean? There's certain songs off a project that I have coming up that are like a little bit more like I hope, this can make people think at the very least, you know what I mean? Kind of making more thought-provoking music that I maybe haven't been making with Drives the Common Man up until this kind of point. But I think, yeah, like, the difference between writing songs about like girls and stuff is like, like people are going to connect to that in their own way. But for writing more songs about like the world and kind of what's going on and kind of how hectic everything is. It's like, I mean, I'm not trying to be like like, oh, let's do this, let's change the world. It's more like I'm not that person. I'm just like, I'll write about stuff that upsets me, and like at the end of the day, like I'm writing music for myself. It's cool that other people like it, but I have to do it, to let something out. So it's not on the forefront of my brain to be like, I'm gonna write a song that's gonna make people think like this. But after now the songs are done, yeah, I've been like, yeah, I hope people can think about it and think about, maybe the world from this kind of lens and stuff like that.
I feel like in that whole answer there were like three lines from Singer Not a Fighter in your answer there.
I just have like a whiteboard
It
behind me with
reminded
all
me
my
of that
lyrics.
song so much. Like
But
were
at the
you
end of the
saying
day,
that
Mother
song,
raised the
what
singer,
was your
not a
favorite
fighter.
song? The one where you try to change the world. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Honestly,
Awesome.
it'd be pretty awesome to do an interview where you just answered with lyrics from different songs.
You know what I mean? That's definitely my next thing. After this, I'm good, definitely going to be doing that more. Like not even answering questions that make sense, you know what I mean? Just like using lyrics and they're like, "Oh, that doesn't make sense, but that's one of your lyrics, man. It's cool."
That'll definitely go viral, I bet. What's
100%,
going on with
100%.
Drive?
He's just out of his mind. Like, what is he talking about? And then the song comes out and it's like, oh, it makes sense. That was pretty prophetic.
Oh,
So you mentioned a little bit about some of the new music you have coming out, as trying to change the world. But so we are curious, what are we gonna see in the near future here? Are we gonna see what new kind of new music are we gonna see? Any collaborations, any other big projects on the horizon?
tour.
Yeah,
Definitely a tour. We need you here in Seattle.
yeah, that's like my main thing. Like, as much as I want to get the music out, it's like I want to play, man. Like that's like the whole thing. Like if you're not playing, like, I think that's one thing that we kind of lose with the whole social media thing is people forget that the best way to connect with people is just playing live and like gonna play shows and stuff. But for new music, yeah, I've been working on a project for like longer than I'd care to admit. Just just making it perfect, and it's just kind of like an accumulation, like I was saying earlier, of like all these different styles of music that I like, and it's like into this to me like a perfect project where it's like I connect emotionally to all the songs. I feel like the sounds of them are the best representation of who I am and my music and everything like that. In collaborations, I have a cool collaboration on it. I don't know if I'm allowed to say it, but I'll say it. I don't care. But this artist named Chastity from Whitby, Ontario. Was a good friend of mine. And I was stoked. I'm a big fan of him. I was always been a big fan of him, and we kind of became friends. So I was like, oh yeah, we should hop on this track. So that's pretty much like the only kind of collaboration on the project. But I'm excited about that. But yeah, just like a very different for me lyrically too. You're not really singing about too much like personal life and like, girls and stuff. You're just talking about like kind of the world. But it's painted in the picture of a kind of a, without divulging too much. It's like it's a concept album. I have a concept album coming out.
Oh,
Yeah.
for Indigenous youth who dream of making music or following a creative path, what advice would you give them as they start a journey?
I would say just don't think about it too hard. I mean, I think there's a lot of pressure to create a certain style of art, given your roots. And, that's what people, might expect. But doing whatever you do and what you want to do, it's going to be Indigenous art no matter what. Like if I come out with a punk rock song or a hardcore song, it's Indigenous music because I'm an Indigenous person. And I think young people need to understand that like you can do whatever you want to do and it's going to be Indigenous art. I do think on the same hand, I think it's important that we still have young people that are still creating art of the in the traditional sense and and like carrying that torch. But I think also being able to kind of not have to think about what you're doing, just do what you're doing and understand that whatever it is you're making, it's indigenous art. And it's just art at the end of the day too. So to not do stuff that you think people are gonna like also, like there's gonna be someone out there, even if it's just four people that like it and really connect to what you're doing, that's as important as it is. And then not to not base your success off of just because a lot of people like it. Are you happy making it? And like that's where you should kind of draw from your success, at least in the beginning and stuff like that.
That's good advice right there.
Very good.
Definitely. It doesn't make you happy.
Yeah.
I've kind of tried to incorporate different things. Sometimes I've used a traditional drum in my music. Sometimes I've used my traditional language for song titles. I'm getting more comfortable with just exploring different things, like even gospel music in my own language. That's kind of like something that connects me with my father. My father was a Catholic.